All right, so I want to talk about a video. So Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro are talking about love and God's love and different implications concerning that. So I wanted to kind of take some time and comment on that. So let's jump over.
So very often I hear Christians say things like God is love, and the Jew in me goes, well, he's a little more than that. What's your take on the sort of boiling down of Christianity to the sort of trope that God is love? What does that mean, and what is that supposed to mean, or is there something beyond that?
I think that statement is only problematic in our society because we have such a absurd view of what love is. A shallow view, I should say. We think of love as just an emotional attachment. And so very often when we say we love someone, it's really about us. What we love about them is how they make us feel when we're with them. But that's not actually what love is. Love is I think it was Aquinas said love is willing the good of the other. That's what it means to love someone. It's a very kind of simple way of looking at it. If you really want what is best for them in every sense, spiritually as well, and you're going to work as much as you can to bring that, help them bring that about in their own life, and then you love them. And so if we think of love in that sense, number one, as a choice, as a force of will, then I think God is love kind of works. Although I think maybe it's just better to say God is all loving. Maybe when you say God is love, it just becomes sort of confusing.
Love is God, right? Exactly.
Right, love is God. It becomes a sort of pantheistic thing of we are all God ourselves if we love, and just weird stuff. So I think God is loving is the best way of putting it, I think.
Yeah, so let me comment on that here, and then we will conclude. I agree with both of them here. In Greek, which is what our New Testament was written in, there are no less than 4 words that are translated into the single word love. Let me kind of give 2 of the words. One word is eros. That's kind of your, eros is a love of that's very emotional, very passionate, kind of this uncontrollable emotion. We get our word erotic from it, so you kind of have a hint of what that is. So eros love is born out of emotion, whereas when you read in the New Testament, specifically in 1 John, the word that you see for love pop up most often is the word agape. And agape is kind of the love that Matt Walsh describes here. The sacrificial, generous love that is born not out of emotion, but that is born out of the will. It is a determined and responsible love, right? A sacrificial love. By and large, when a man loves a woman, the man will say, "Hey, this girl is so great. She's so pretty. I like her voice. I like the qualities of her life. I like all these things." And a man may love a woman because of that. But when God looks at us, there's nothing attractive in us. Romans 3 says that even the righteous deeds that we do are but filthy rags in the sight of God. So there's nothing that is attractive, to God concerning us. He loves us out of a choice. He chooses to love. That's agape love. And in 1 John, we see that because God agape loves us, we should agape love one another, right? So I also want to comment on a little bit of what Ben Shapiro said. So he talks about, God is love. First of all, what does that mean? What does that mean for Christianity today? Everyone kind of focuses on God is love. Everything comes down to God is love. So let me comment on that. In 1 John 4, verse 7, that's where you read God is love. Let me see if I can pull it up here. John says, "Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God, and whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love." What does that mean, God is love? It's not an ontological statement. I think it's important that you understand that. One of the best ways that best illustrations I've heard concerning this is this. Early on, when Kentucky Fried Chicken became very popular in the United States, It was owned and operated by Colonel Sanders. He was the one that was responsible for making the chicken finger-licking good. He came up with all the spices. He came up with the recipe. It was all him. And KFC became such a hit in the United States in particular. They were popping up absolutely everywhere. So early on, when KFC was first around, if you were sitting in a KFC with your buddy, and you're both eating chicken, and your buddy looks over to you and says, "Hey, Colonel Sanders is KFC," you would have known exactly what that means. That apart from Colonel Sanders, there is no real KFC. So now, moving that illustration to what we're talking about now, God is love. God is love. Apart from God, there is no real love. Right? What did we learn? Love is from God. Love is the source. So God's nature is to love. That's what his nature is. But, as Ben Shapiro was talking about, it's not simply that God is only love. Okay? There was a wonderful quote. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Wonderful quote by C.H. Dodd. Yeah, right here. He says, "The essential truths of God's being must always be held together. People focus on the fact that God is love, but they don't always champion the fact that God is holy. It's not simply God is love. Also, we read that God is light. That is, God is good. We also read that God is holy. And the interesting thing about God's holiness is that because God is holy, he must respond to sin. He must respond to it. So wrath is a function of his holiness, right? So we never read a verse that says God is wrath. Wrath is not one of God's intrinsic perfections, like love is. But we do read God is holy, and wrath is a function of his holiness. So if there was no sin, you would never ever see God's wrath. But you will always see God's love. You will always see God's goodness, right? So yes, there is much more. There's much more to God than love. We shouldn't forget about his holiness. Yeah. So anyway, that's just kind of what I wanted to comment on. And thank you very much. God bless you in the way.